surname in Xhosa families is considered more important than surnames. Each Xhosa person can trace their family history back to a specific ancestor. Sundu clan in Xhosa means black. It distinguishes my skin color from other races. This is how my ancestors used to call themselves during apartheid. It was their way of showing white oppressors that they are proud of who they are, that they are proud of being black. Being black does not necessarily mean that you are barbaric. It doesn't mean that you are uncivilized. It doesn't mean you're stupid. No worthy less.
Afrikaans away! Away with Afrikaans away! Away with Afrikaans away! Opa!
This is a illegal gathering. The time is now 9:23. You have 3 minutes. At 9:26, you must disintegrate. Thank you very much. Requesting you that instead of making a mockery of this warning, that you stop this action immediately. Grenade!
This is a story about language apartheid in South Africa. This is an important time of my country's history. This is a revolutionary time in the history of South Africa, in particular that of the black community. Many black South Africans, native South Africans, were fighting against being taught in Afrikaans, the language of the oppressor, as the medium of instruction in black schools. Our parents, our mothers, our fathers were young at the time, and they were fighting against being taught in Afrikaans.
I will not submit myself to such
Anger had been intensifying over the apartheid regime enforcement of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction among students. This anger was very rapidly directed against the whole system of Bantu education. Bantu education was first introduced in 1955. It was designed for black people only and was created to prevent black South Africans from receiving the same quality of education as white people. Thus, it provides no intellectual development of blacks. Additionally, it was consciously introduced to make the enslaved public exploitable as cheap labor.
Under the Bantu Education Act, they were to concentrate on practical household skills. What is the use of teaching a Bantu child mathematics? Asked the Native Affairs Minister.
All the other information about the outside world was extracted like a tooth out of our education system. What was left was a skewed sense of an education which prepared us to be good servants and nothing else.
It is a piece of soap.
Beneficial at all. I mean, you have to understand that everything that was formulated and created by the white government back then was basically to degrade the black person and just instilling in them that you're not better. You'll never achieve anything. You just work in my farm.
However, the great expansion of the capitalist economy brought about the need for skilled labor, which is in direct conflict with the primary need for cheap labor, thereby producing a serious crisis in the schools. Under the Bantu education, black South African poverty and the cost of education combined to produce a high dropout rate. By 1975, less than 10% of black South Africans were receiving secondary education and 0.24% were in Form 5, which is the final year of high school.
Goeienaand. Daar kom tye.
Therefore, the government was forced to introduce some changes because of the skills blockage. The changes included reducing the length of school's career from 13 to 12 years, and pass mark for admission to secondary school is also reduced by 10%, from 50 to 40%, therefore increasing acceptance.
As part of the effort to confirm black Africans in their subservient role, black schools were given a new syllabus.
January of 1973, a quarter of all registered students had no building of their own, but congregated in church halls, tents, or even classrooms borrowed from other schools in the afternoon. As a result,
These state affairs caused vast bitterness amongst parents. Many regarded education to be the elevator that would lift the children out of poverty, but the opposite was happening, the increasing number of young black working class individuals. With these unpleasant conditions already in place, the attempt to impose Afrikaans into black Bantu schools increased the gap of the social class between white people and black people. This sparked opposition from the students, and they retaliated by boycotting classes. By early June, several thousand pupils from different schools were on strike. There are about 300 to 400 students representing 35 schools, and they have gathered to stage a mass demonstration on the 16th of June. They begin by first launching a movement in opposition to the obligation of Afrikaans as a medium of instruction in African schools.
Afrikaans was difficult as a subject, so we couldn't imagine having to do subjects like history to be converted to geschiedenis and mathematics, wiskunde, and all what have you. So we had to indicate that we don't want Afrikaans, and initially our aim was not to destroy. The aim was a peaceful demonstration.
Can you imagine what happened? I saw my younger brother on the opposite side of the pavement. I couldn't believe he was there.
Hector Peterson, a 12-year-old boy, falls in front of his comrades and becomes the first victim of the uprising. In disbelief and in pain, the students drop their play cards and chaos begins. With no hesitation from the police, they open fire on the unarmed students. The open-fire shootings kills about 25 to 30 students within 20 minutes. The students, many of them girls as young as 10 to 17 years, are astounded at first. They stand in the dusty and bloody street looking at the bodies of the dead and wounded.
We didn't understand what was tear gas. As we were retreating, trying to resist, tempers fled and we started throwing stones to the police.
Nurse Koa's daughter was caught up in the violence.
And the children were around there and running away, running this way. And all these mothers from here, they would stand outside here and cry, stop shooting our children, stop shooting our children. And the children were running all over here and coming to our houses and hiding themselves.
After quite a while, everything was quiet. I pick up my head and I look around, I find everything is quiet. I find everybody, the bodies are laying down there. My uncle died there, my younger brother, and my sister. Those are the people who died there. I've lost people that I loved and people that I needed them. Sometimes when I sit down, I find my things are not going right. I say, if my mother was here, my uncle was here, maybe things would have went right.
Even though black people have always been the majority in South Africa, the apartheid government made black people feel like they were the minority. That's how they treated them, as being the minority of South Africa. How they achieved this was by limiting all opportunities that were given to white people. So Bantu education was one of those tactics of limiting all opportunities to black people. They were not given the same education as white people were given. They were not given the same homelands as white people were given.
They were the inferior people. They were the strange people. They had a different culture, and they were cursed. And so they must be the laborers. And I couldn't imagine that one should ever really associate with them or even touch them.
After 3 generations of being successfully oppressed by the government, the youth of 1976 took a stand, a costly stand, that claimed the lives of 100 and more students. Estimated death tolls of June 16 vary from 25 to 100 students shot dead. By the second day, 1,500 police armed with Sten guns, automatic rifles and hand machine carbines were called into Soweto, and army units placed on standby. The casualties were higher than on the previous days, possibly hundreds. The rioting continued throughout the country as students gained a new sense of empowerment as the story of Soweto spread. Police couldn't quell the students, even with force, and protests continued for the rest of the year. The riots attracted international attention, captured most powerfully is the famous photograph of 12-year-old Hector Peterson. The voices of children carried all around the world, and the apartheid government was never able to regain the power they had enjoyed for decades. A new generation had made their voices heard, refusing to accept the discrimination and hatred to which their parents had already resigned themselves to. And to this day, June 16 is celebrated as Youth Day in South Africa. Our parents are prepared to suffer under the white man's rule. They have been living for years under these laws and have become immune to them. But we strongly refuse to swallow the education that is designed to make us slaves in our own country.
Next time that bloody white man calls you a boy, don't run up to him and lick his ass like we all do. Turn back and face him. White man, I'm a man, not a boy.